Wakenya wenzagu, tukumbuke.
We're from the same country.
Kenya.
When we come together, great things happen.
A very good evening to you from the Catholic University of Eastern Africa here in Nairobi. Welcome to the 2017 presidential debate. I am Yvonne Okwara Matole of KTN News. This debate will be the first for the evening and will feature 3 presidential candidates. The candidates for this debate have been selected on the basis of an objective criteria developed by Debates Media Limited, a non-profit, non-partisan organization. The debates are airing on all major television channels, radio stations, and online platforms. The structure, format, and rules of this debate, as well as the thematic areas, have been shared with all 8 presidential campaigns. The exact questions, however, are my own and have not been shared with any of the candidates, their campaign teams, or indeed anyone else. Now, we have asked the audience behind me to remain quiet throughout that debate. This one, no cheers, no jeers, no applauding or clapping, except for this moment, as we welcome the candidates on stage. The first in order of the ballots that was taken a short while. Also, let's give another warm round of applause to Dr. Japheth Kavinga Kaluyu, who's an independent presidential candidate. Seconds for your opening and closing statements. You will have 2 minutes to answer questions and 60 seconds for rebuttals and follow-ups if need be. The timer is clearly visible to all the candidates at 2 points on this stage and on a screen behind me. There is some water. We will get that replaced. Not to worry, Professor. There is some water at the bottom of your, inside your lecterns. So not to worry. Karibuni. I hope you have your notebooks and your pens and you are free to take notes. Thank you all very much. So I'd like us to begin, and we will do that in order of balloting. So we will start that with you, Dr. Aukot. Karibu sana.
Asante.
You call yourself Daktari wa Katiba, but you now want to take that a step further and be president of this great republic. You have 90 seconds for your opening statements on just why you are the man to lead this country for the next 5 years.
Thank you, Yvonne. First of all, I want to thank the organizers of this debate, and I want to thank millions of Kenyans who are watching this debate this evening. Now, my name is Ekuru Aukot. I'm from Turkana, son of a nomad, and I'm very proud to be standing before you here to actually present myself to seek the presidency of this country. I'm very proud from where I come from. I'm very proud of this country. And I do believe that with the opportunities Kenya has given me, right from where I come from, the resilience of a son of a nomadic person to be standing before millions of Kenyans today to seek the presidency of this country is not any mean achievement. I would like to start by saying that as having participated in the writing of this country's constitution, there is one big issue that Kenyans identified, and that is the failure of leadership in this country. For the last 55 years, Kenya has had a failed leadership, a leadership that has orchestrated tribalism, a leadership that has normalized theft of public money, a leadership that has relegated youth and women in government, a leadership that has no respect for the rule of law, devolution, and the constitution in particular. I therefore bring to this bid the experience I've seen in many other countries in the world. I've had the opportunity to participate in many countries in writing constitution, Liberia, Lesotho, Zimbabwe, Tunisia. And I've seen if there's one thing that can move a country forward, it's stewardship, it's leadership. Without that, no country can prosper anywhere in the world.
Thank you very much, Dr. Aukot. Dr. Kavinga Kaluyu, welcome to our debates this evening. You call yourself the diaspora candidate. Many Kenyans will ask, you've been out of the country and are just now coming back to lead them. Why should Kenyans trust you to steer them? Please tell us that in the next 90 seconds.
Kwanza na wasalimia wa Kenya wote popote mlipo kwa Jamhuri ya Kenya na ulimwenguni kote mnaposikiza na kutazama. Greetings, my fellow Kenyans. Tonight is your night. It is not our night. You get the chance as a country to interview your next commander-in-chief. I'll tell you, my name is Dr. Japheth Kavinga Kaluyu. I was born in a small poor village in Kitui. As a little boy, my biggest dreams were those of my grandfather, owning a lot of goats and cows and taking them to the fields to show off the numbers myself. A dream of finishing higher education, becoming a university dean, working in Wall Street, becoming an author, TV and radio show host, and ultimately being there as an example for the poor, nameless, and those who do not have, hope that you can still run for the president of the Republic of Kenya is a pleasure. Tonight, I get to present my 6-point plan, which is very simple: making life affordable, period. Bringing jobs, especially for the youth. Bringing skills for the 21st century. Jobs, cutting taxes, corruption. I will be the end of corruption. And finally, diaspora, you get the chance to participate. So I'm looking forward to lay down my 6-point plan. Thank you, and we look forward to present it.
Thank you very much. Professor Michael Wainaina, from the world of academia into politics.
Yes. The main question that I asked myself before I ran for president is, can we leapfrog this country from a primitive, tribal third world country into a first world country in one generation? And the answer to that question was yes. And the question was, how do we do it? I am convinced that the only way to do that is to inspire and to invest in a new generation of young people who will modernize this country. This is not the first time that this country is calling upon a new generation to give it a new vision. In the 40s and 50s, it called upon a new generation to fight for independence. In the 60s and 70s, it called upon a new generation to consolidate independence. In the 80s and 90s, it called upon a new generation to bring a new dispensation of pluralism. In the new millennium, this country is again turning to a new generation of young people to give it a new vision, to give it new leadership, and to set the foundation for modernization of the country. And that is why I am in this race, and I'm saying it is time to youthify and modernize Kenya. It is time to invest in the next generation of young men and women who will do that.
Asante sana. Let's get straight into the issues tonight. All of these thematic areas were shared with your campaign teams. I'd like to start off by talking about, naturally, the point of integrity and leadership. And I'll start with you, Dr. Aukot. You have said before in various television interviews that you believe that what this country needs is a benevolent dictator. Some would find this statement at odds with a man who calls himself Daktari wa Katiba, who delivered one of the most progressive constitutions in the world. Could you explain to us what a benevolent dictatorship under your watch would look like?
In the 1960s, thanks for that question, Yvonne. In the 1960s, Kenya was equated with the tiger economies of Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, South Korea. And it took the leadership of those countries to ensure that their citizens, there is a certain strategic direction that the country must take. In 1963, when we became independent, we were promised by the leadership of this country that we will eradicate poverty, disease, and ignorance. Today, as I speak to you, there is cholera in the city of Nairobi, even affecting top government officials. Now, that is betrayal. And therefore, what Kenya needs today, with some of our normalized bad manners, including theft of public money that is happening in all the 47 counties of Kenya, 25 allied to one coalition, 22 allied to the other coalition. I think what Kenya needs is a no-nonsense leader. It's not necessarily a dictator in the normal parlance of definition of that word. It's somebody who can say, this is the direction this country must take, and we're not going to tolerate certain bad manners, including theft, including, we cannot have a chief officer of this country who says, what would you like people like me to do when confronted with questions around corruption? You want a leader who will not tolerate certain bad mannerism. We have become such an indisciplined country, so much so that if you look at the roads, the way matatu drivers behave, this is a question of making sure this country has a certain strategic direction. I keep on citing this example. Neighboring Rwanda, everybody knows that Kagame's Rwanda does not tolerate corruption, for example, bribery. You behave in a certain manner likely to suggest that you want to bribe a police officer. You know that the full force of the law will be with you. So what I mean is that I think we have had a leadership that has tolerated certain bad mannerism, tribalism, for example, that the mobilization for ideas is around tribe. I think that's the kind of leadership that we need to actually be able to shun certain kind of mannerism and say, this is where I want to take Kenya strategically in terms of economic development and all the things that are actually in our manifesto, which is, I think, is the only other manifesto competitive, better than the rest that are out there.
All right, Dr. Kaluyu, he wants to be a benevolent dictator, do you?
Leadership is natural, and it becomes natural. If you lead, people will know. People will respond and follow you. It is not something done out of, you don't follow people out of morbid curiosity, or you just follow because you've been told to follow. I have led, being a university dean, with over 100 professors reporting to me. I have led over 2 campuses. I've worked in Wall Street, in New York City, where I have been able to rise into training manager and did what Kenyans do, winning awards. What I can promise to Kenyans is that I will lead because I have solutions. When you have solutions, when the pain exceeds the pleasure, people follow the right leader. Life is very expensive. I will make sure I cut the cost of living and also make sure health, shelter, food, basics that you just need every day, they are catered for. I'll make sure youth, as I lead in the youth area, I will have a plan, and I have it, where we have every 290 constituencies, they will have 2 kilometer cyber technology, bringing jobs of the 21st century, and making sure I bring free skills training. Only less than 5% of Kenyans actually have university degree. That means other skills that are needed, we need leadership in that area. I will be the end of corruption. I'm independent, I'm uncompromised, I do not belong to the cartels, I do not belong to any interest groups. And if you give me a chance to be your commander-in-chief, I will make sure corruption is a thing of the past and it is history. When it comes to diaspora, we send them abroad. I left my job as a university dean, a professor, and I can tell you they need to lift their weight, and I'll make sure they come back home. And finally, I'll cut taxes. I trust you with your money. I want to give money back in your pocket.
All right, I just want 1 minute of a follow-up for that, specifically to do with integrity and leadership. In your 6-point plan manifesto, you say leaders who have a questionable past should not be allowed to run for office. The idea that the leader was not directly involved doesn't hold water because it happened under his or her leadership. My specific question to you is, do you think your opponents who are here with us tonight and others would pass your test?
I can only speak for myself, and Kenyans are smart. They know who has been involved in what, they know who has done what, they know who speak opposite of what they do. I can tell you, if you are thinking or imagining of taking public coffers, please start packing, because a new sheriff will be in town. Because we cannot tolerate this. People taking public coffers and trying to run away, and tomorrow making broken promises and promising people every 5 years being part of the system, trying to see how they can take advantage. I will end that. And if you are caught, we will prosecute you in public. And therefore, I'm here to assure Kenyans that I will make sure, if you have a probable cause, not rumors, you will be suspended. Your case will come quickly. You will be tried in public. And guess what? You will not run for an office because you don't deserve it. You got your chance, you blew it, you don't deserve to be running a public office.
Thank you. Professor Michael Wainaina, you've made some rather stinging accusations against the current administration. You have called them thieves and corrupt people. So let's talk about integrity and leadership under your administration, because a lot of people say that some of your criticisms are academic, are idealistic. What sort of integrity would you bring to the office of the president?
Like you said, I am a university professor, a retired university professor. You have said that I have had stinging criticisms of some people who are running. Yvonne, I will assure you that it is not me who said those things about about them, they say those things about themselves. I have been a blogger for a year, profmichaelwainaina.com, and I have been responding to some of the things they have been talking about themselves. So when you say that I have been criticizing them or I have been calling them thieves, they have been calling each other thieves. It is not me who called them who called them thieves. I will refer you, Yvonne, to an article that was written by Musalia Mudavadi on 10th of August 2016. In the Standard of 10th of August 2016, where he said that the political class in NASA, that time it was CORD, and Jubilee are suffering from political gangsterism. It is not me who called them, who said it's suffering from political gangsterism. I will refer you to another article that I did called The Anarchist and the Thief. It is not me who called anybody anarchist. I was telling you what they are calling each other.
But do you believe that they're corrupt and they're thieves yourself?
The question of corruption in this country, Yvonne, is not a question of belief. It is a question of fact. It is in the public domain. In fact, like I've told you, it is not me who calls them thieves. It is they who call each other thieves. It is they who call each other tribalists. It is they who call each other clueless. I remember when I was responding to that article by Mudavadi, I remember saying, yes, Mr. Mudavadi, the Jubilee tribal kingpins are Moi men. He had called them Moi men. And I said, so are you. And therefore, they cannot point a finger at any one of us. They have already described themselves, and I am only repeating what they have told us they are.
I want to give you 1 minute to tell us what your leadership would look like, because you've told us about the others and what they say about themselves.
The question of leadership, for me, the most important thing about leadership, it's inclusion. The problem with these other guys is that they look at inclusion in terms of tribalism. So when you're talking about inclusion, they're thinking about tribes. When I'm thinking about inclusion, I'm talking about the excluded masses, 70% of the youth and 54 to 58% of the women. Yvonne, this is your document. You sent us this document and you told us that this is the way in which the thematic areas that we are supposed to deal with. I will welcome you to look at this document and see that youth and women, even for the organizers of this debate, are the last in this list. They are the last. I am here to make sure that from now on, 70% of women and of youth and 54% of women are no longer last on this list or any other list.
All right, thank you. Let's talk about cohesion and inclusion, because that's a perfect segue into that. And you know, we're at a time in this country when the latest headline is that the Asian members of the Asian community have now received recognition, at least from this president. So that's an interesting space in which we find ourselves. But I would like to ask you, Dr. Aukot, what would be the difference, perhaps, between your manifesto and, say, Professor Wainaina's? Because he's talked about, you know, the tribal narrative and taking that away. And you, in your manifesto, say, I quote, "Our obsession is to create unity in our diversity, ensure that fairness prevails." You're talking about a third way when it comes to inclusion, and so is Prof. What would be the significant difference between yours and Prof's for when it comes to cohesion?
First of all, I think of the three of us who are here, I am the only one with a written manifesto. A manifesto which even has a pledge at the back signed by myself and my running mate, Emmanuel Nzai. So Kenyans can hold me accountable to this written document, which I've actually appended my signature to. Now, the difference between us is that whatever I have put in here, I didn't start talking about it just the other day. It wasn't for me an afterthought. We have documented what we will do with the issue of tribalism in this country. I have proposed that within the first 100 days of my presidency, one of the things that I will do is to effectively implement Article 130 of the Kenya Constitution. That Kenyans can hold me to, because that article says, in forming the national executive, you must have regard to the regional and ethnic diversity of the peoples of Kenya. That is something I truly believe in, because I was in the committee of experts that actually wrote this constitution. And because of that, we have adopted as one of our strongest pillars the idea that we must end negative ethnicity and tribalism. Na tunasema katika Third Way Alliance kwamba ukabila ni ujinga. Maana hakuna mmoja wetu alimwandikia Mwenyezi Mungu barua ama muumba wako na kusema kwamba anataka kuzaliwa Mkikuyu, Mturukana, Mjaluo ama Mkamba. Kwa hivyo all of us must really celebrate our diversity. And one of the things that we are not shy from saying as Third Way Alliance is that we are not going to mobilize Kenya around negative ethnicity or tribalism.
So how will you end it specifically?
Well, I will end it by, first of all, invoking the right articles of the Constitution that says you must have an inclusive government. Not the kind of government that we have today, which is really two tribes or three tribes at the very most. Number two, we are not shy from celebrating our diversity. And I don't want Kenyans to be shy about the tribes they come from. That is the only thing that can build for us a nation state. And I think what Kenya needs is a father figure. Somebody who will look at Kenya and look at all tribes in Kenya as their children, as a parent would in their homes. That is the difference between us and the rest.
Professor, I'll come to you because he directly said this is not something he started talking about yesterday. Is this something you started talking about yesterday? And you talk about an alternative narrative.
Non-ethnic narrative.
Non-ethnic narrative.
Yes.
What does that mean?
It means that it is possible for us to mobilize politically without resorting to tribalism. I would like to school Kenyans as to what tribalism is and what tribe is. There is nothing wrong with tribe. This comes culturally. You are born into a tribe. The problem is tribalism. Tribalism is the use of tribe to include or to exclude, and that is a problem. And it is possible for us to get a non-ethnic political narrative to mobilize politics, but we will first of all have to get rid of the political kingpins in Jubilee and NASA who rely on tribalism to mobilize politically. You cannot get rid of tribalism if you have tribalists at the top of the political hierarchy. And I've always said, this debate about who will end tribalism and who will not end tribalism, the only way of ending tribalism is getting rid of the tribalists in Jubilee and NASA.
So is it that simple, Prof?
Absolutely.
The only way we do that, once we get rid of them,
absolutely.
Will we be fine with the issue of tribe?
Oh yes, let me give you an example. The most effective way of getting rid of malaria is to get rid of the mosquitoes that spread the malaria. You can cure malaria, but for so long as you haven't done anything about the mosquitoes that spread the malaria, you're not going to solve the problem. You are going to do things down here, claiming that you're getting rid of tribalism, but for so long as the tribal kingpins in Jubilee and NASA survive on tribal mobilization, tribalism will not end. The only people who can end tribalism, Yvonne, in this country is the people of Kenya. On 8th of August, vote out the tribal kingpins in NASA and Jubilee. If you don't vote them out, you are stuck with tribalism.
I want to give you one last minute, just as a follow-up to that.
Yep.
You say getting rid of them, getting rid of the mosquitoes that cause malaria.
Yep.
And then what? Because to follow up on your analogy, even after that, you've got to do something to keep the mosquitoes away and keep the body healthy. But you make it sound so simple.
Because it is that simple. You get rid of the mosquitoes, you will get rid of malaria, and then what? That's a nice question, Yvonne. Then youthify and modernize Kenya. Invest and inspire in a new generation of young people who will modernize this country. Yvonne, I have told you that this country has called upon its young and new generation to give it a new vision. Once we get rid of the old vision, I call it siasa ya ukabila, ukora na upuzi. Politics of ethnicity, impunity, and mediocrity. Once we get rid of that, then we as a country, we need to inspire and invest in a new generation of young people. Millions of them who are waiting to be leaders, millions of them who are waiting to be inspired. It is possible for us to imagine a new non-ethnic political narrative for ourselves. Absolutely.
All right, Dr. Kaluyu, the answers tonight seem to be very simple, including inclusion in government, which is what Dr. Aukot says. But how do we include everybody in government? We now have 44 tribes, as it were. How do we include everybody?
First, I want to follow up that one party has the best manifesto. I reject that idea because everyone of us has good manifesto.
Absolutely.
And everybody has a right to expression. That is given by Bill of Rights, Chapter 4 of the Constitution. So I give it to the self-expression, but also if you have a good manifesto, you tell us what you're going to do, what you're going to solve. Huh?
Is yours the better of your opponents?
I believe my manifesto will solve the Kenyan problems. I'm not into what is best, what is not. I'm into what will solve the Kenyan problems. And that's what I'm going to talk through my 6-point plan. Now, come to cohesion. 131, Article 131E, Chapter 9. President is a symbol of unity in the country. So that means that if you lead, our country is not unique. In fact, we have one of the lowest number of tribes in Africa. Places like Cameroon, they have 242 or more. So leading about tribes is a non-issue. If you have a good leader, a person who is able to lead the people, because if you are in Kisii, if you are hungry, it's the same kind of hunger that is felt by people in Kitui. The problems of education in Kisumu are the same as in Nairobi. So depending on how you approach it. So the leadership is what is lacking here. The first days of my office, when you give me the opportunity to be the president of the Republic of Kenya, I will call all the groups, diversity, including the businesses, including the different kind of tribes, people who are on conflict, people who have issues of diversity, they can't agree. I will be having them there, including youth, business people, women who are being run around in town by city council people. We will come together and we will ask, how do we work together? Because the solutions will not come from us. It will come from the people. And when you give people the empowerment and you lead them, they will follow, problems will be solved.
I want to give you a minute to be a little bit more specific, Dr. Kaluyu. So we bring together all of these people together under one roof, and then talk to us about some of the possible solutions, because yes, you say it is coming from the people, but there's also leadership and stewardship.
Yes.
And so the question then would be, perhaps let me rephrase it differently, why do certain people feel excluded in this country?
Because we have not done enough to build the capacity. When you build the capacity, you go through different clusters of people, different tribes. There's nothing wrong with the tribe. It is what we do with it, how we apply the tribes. And we are able to build capacity. Leaders, looking for leaders, including youth. And it doesn't have to be leaders of people. It can be leaders of systems, leaders of issues in the villages. And those are the people we want to be able to build capacity with. And once we bring those groups together, it is proven item. It is done in Africa. As a matter of fact, you import a lot of expatriates to come and just do capacity building. Instead of importing, we will train training skills for the youth. University students, you will be getting free credits, just like a full subject, by doing these basic things of building capacity. And we can revitalize our system, our society, and together we can move forward. I am ready to lead. I'm ready for duty.
Thank you, Dr. Kaluyu. I want us to move to an issue of corruption that I think a lot of you have already alluded to in our opening statements and what we have said so far. Dr. Aukot, the president is on record as saying this, that has been quoted a number of times, munataka nifanye nini? But what preceded that statement was that he said the law in some ways restricts him from doing certain things. For example, he cannot fire the Auditor General if he's unhappy with his work, or the DPP, or the commissioners at the EACC directly. Is there a way that this law that you helped to draft restricts the powers of the presidency in terms of the fight on corruption?
By the way, just for the record, Yvonne, you are yet to give me an extra 1 minute like you've given to my colleagues so that I can also respond to the question. Now,
perhaps you're a little clearer, sir.
No, okay. Be that as it may, just for the record, so that people know you've given them an advantage over 3 minutes. Now, first of all, we don't call it corruption. I want to ask the audience here, who in their mother tongues actually can identify the word corruption? What is there in our various mother tongues is theft of public money. And the people who are stealing money meant for development of this country, the education, the health sector, are actually our leaders. I gave you earlier on an example of the 47 counties of Kenya. 25 aligned to NASA, 22 aligned to Jubilee. They have all stolen money in equal measure. And this is not a Ekuru Aukot saying it, it's the Auditor General report. Every year in this country, we steal 700 billion Kenya shillings. The corporates do not account for 700 billion. That's about 1.4 trillion Kenya shillings that we actually lose to theft of public money. Now, at the heart of that theft is actually the leadership of this country. So solutions that Third Way is proposing is that Kenyans must be courageous enough to remove the cancerous tumor, which is bad leadership that orchestrated theft of public money. I mean, if you look at the 22 departments under the Jubilee administration, all of them cannot account for money that is meant, like including 5 billion health sector, NYS saga, Goldenberg, 215 Eurobond. This is a factor of leadership, a leadership that could say, I am not going to tolerate theft of public money, especially if you work under me. Now, Third Way Alliance has various proposals, and because of time, I would like all of you, because you seem like to have smartphones here, go to ekurunzai.com. You can actually download what we call our promise for Kenyans, and you will see therein, we have made propositions, including jailing people, establishing actually the hall of shame. I think we need to, just like Chinese do. They put all their public servants and they go and visit prisons. I think we need to go a step further in this country, and which is why for us at Third Way Alliance, we are calling it theft of public money, not corruption.
So here's your 1 minute for rebuttal.
Thank you very much.
Back to my question. Do you think there are any weak points in the laws that exist in the country? Is EACC, as is presently constituted, and the laws that give it the mandate to do its work, is it properly constituted under law to enable it fight corruption effectively?
The problem in this country, Yvonne, is not laws, it's not even policies, not even institutions. It's actually a question of leadership. The number one weapon you need in fighting corruption is actually political goodwill. If you do not have political goodwill at the very top, if you have a president who throws hands in the air and says, what would you like me to do? Then therein, the thieves will creep in. Because if a government is responsible for corruption, you know what? Kenyans need to think about the history of corruption in this country. It started in 1963 when land meant for the homeless, the IDPs was actually stolen by the leadership. 1975, the Kendrian fertilizer, again, it's a factor of leadership. We are still paying for that money up until now. So really, the laws are there, and that's why we at Third Way Alliance have demystified this word corruption and call it theft. Because then you punish a thief. If today you take away Mamulika Mwizi on the streets of Nairobi, the penalty is that it's robbery with violence. That's the charge. And I could hang by the neck until I die. But with corruption, we sanitize it.
All right, Dr. Kaluyu, he's talking about calling it theft as it is. But what's your understanding of why corruption seems so difficult to root out of this country? What is wrong with the war on corruption? Transparency International has consistently named the Kenya Police as one of the most corrupt institutions in the country. I mean, there's a number of indices across the world that continue to put us on that, and not just with this administration, but with previous ones before it. What is your understanding of this cancer that is corruption? And what specific thing would you do to end it, to reduce it, to bring it under control?
And some of them usually rank us about number 3 in the world in terms of corruption. That is very high ranking. Corruption is real. It's living, it's breathing. Corruption does not have to be all money. There can be someone bumping out someone else's kid that has been qualified well to go to university. They don't get the opportunity, and they do not go to university, while someone who is less qualified goes to university. Others could be from medicine, from just systems and things. So corruption has to be approached in a very realistic way. I am independent. It cannot be approached. What is lacking in our corruption fight is the lack of will. We have the Constitution. Every single law has been detailed and has been pointed out how it is to be dealt with. You go to jail. You are caught with public coffers. That's why this chapter of integrity. The problem we have is the will to do it. Over the time, politicians usually get the political baggage. You get people financing you interest groups, and once you get to the office, you are told you look that way, and if you look this way, we are trying to recover our money. I am an independent candidate. I am uncompromised. I'm not part of the system, not a career politician, do not belong to cartels or interest groups. I only pledge my loyalty, I confess, to only one group of people here, the Kenyan people. The people I will be thinking about when I go to sleep in that State House, and the people I will be thinking about when I wake up from that State House. So we are talking of those who can actually fight the corruption. Nairobi has become the place where good ideas come to die. There are no more new ideas, just to enforce it. I have the will. I am the right person to do it. You can trust me. There will be no more.
1 minute. You sound exactly like Dr. Aukot. So for a lot of viewers who are watching, for the 19+ million voters, they would like to know what would be markedly different about your war on corruption from Dr. Aukot's, from Professor Wainaina's, and from the other 5 candidates that are in this race. In other words, what is that one thing that then makes you stand out from everybody else? Because we're starting to agree quite a little bit. So the voters say, well, you're all good, you all agree, so why vote for you over your fellow opponents?
And first of all, thank you so much for that. And Ms. Okwara, there's nothing wrong with agreeing with certain points. When things are good and he has a point that makes sense, I'm not here to penalize him. I'm not the kind of opposition, everything the person is doing, the other person is doing is wrong. That's not how to lead. If Mr. Aukot gets to do the right thing, I say it is good. When Professor Wainaina does it, I will congratulate him. I'm here to lead. So here, what is unique about me, I'm not part of the system. I've never been part of the system.
Have they been part of the system?
It's up to you to judge. The Kenyan people are smart, who has been around or not. So I can talk for myself. If I have been away from, I'm not a career politician, so I've never written any documents around to guide it or anything else. I believe I'm the right candidate who is a fresh start, who can come in without political baggage, and who has never been part of the system and not a career politician. With that, I'm able to eradicate corruption once and for all. I can promise I will be the end of corruption. And if you give me the opportunity to be your commander-in-chief, you can trust. It will take 3, 4, 5, 6 months, and this will be over.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Your time is up. Professor, so he has no baggage, no politics. How different would it be under you? I'm not asking if you think you're better, although if you think you are, please feel free to say so. But what uniqueness would you bring to this conversation and to this particular topic that is, quite pertinent?
I don't know about a war on corruption. This country has never had a war on corruption. Yvonne, if you're looking to end corruption with the tribalists in Jubilee and NASA, I have bad news for you. It's not going to happen. My father uses a very interesting phrase, kumeshariana omerete, unatafuta mbuzi yako na yule mwenye aliikula. Anaenda kukusaidia kutafuta, na yeye ndiye aliiba na akakula. Yvonne, wenye walikula mbuzi yetu, hiyo Dr. Ekuru amesema inaitwa Kenren, ndio tunaitafuta na wao. Kuna mbuzi ilikuwa inaitwa Goldenberg. Tunatafuta mbuzi na wale walikula. Kuna mbuzi inaitwa Anglo Leasing. Tunaitafuta na wale walikula. Kuna mbuzi inaitwa kazi kwa vijana. Hata kuna ingine ilikuwa inaitwa Japan Embassy, if you remember. Ile mbuzi imepotea recently, inaitwa NYS. Tunaitafuta na wenye waliikula. Hautaipata, ana haiwezi kupatikana. Na ile shida iko kwa EACC. Unajua ile mlango ya EACC inazungukanga. Imezunguka miaka ngapi? Miaka 20, na wale watu wenye walikula mbuzi yetu ndio wanaitafuta. Yvonne, the final arbiter on the issue of fighting corruption is the people of Kenya on 8th of August 2017. If they insist on re-electing tribalists and thieves, then we cannot fight corruption. Sababu tunatafuta mbuzi yetu na wenye waliikula. Sasa mimi Yvonne sijakula mbuzi, kwa hivyo nikiingia pale mbuzi yenu mtaipata.
Na ukikula je ukiingia huko ndani?
Pale ndio ninasema wale watu ambao wako suppose kuangalia mbuzi yao ni wana Kenya. Na mtu akiingia pale akikula mbuzi, ni kazi ya Wanakenya kusema wewe ulikula mbuzi yetu, ondoka. Sasa jamaa wamekula mbuzi zetu miaka 54 na tunaendelea kusema huyu ni jamaa wetu, huyu ni jamaa wetu.
I want to give you 1 minute.
Give me.
Because
Again.
I am still not, don't worry. Like I said, clarity. I give you a minute.
I'm counting.
I'm coming to you. I'll give you an extra minute. I'm still not clear.
Yeah.
About your war on corruption. Fine, remove the thieves and the corrupt people as you call them.
Yes.
So who's to guarantee you won't be a thief? What would happen if in your ranks you find persons accused of corruption?
Yeah.
We've stated the problem, Professor, but from you, I'm not sure we're clear about what the solution would be under your watch.
I've told you what the solution is. And I don't have any other solution. The people of Kenya, Yvonne, must pronounce themselves on the unholy trinity of tribalism, impunity, and corruption. That is a trinity, but it is an unholy one. The only way to solve this problem once and for all so that we can start to re-engineer a new psyche, to re-engineer a new republic, Yvonne, is to get rid ya wale watu walikula mbuzi yetu. Na ndio ninasema 8th of August is a turning point in this country. Do people want new? Do people want same old?
What is new?
Possibilities of new are standing in front of you, and I am one of that possibilities. Possibility of new, possibility of different, possibility of clean do not exist in NASA and Jubilee.
I want to give you 1 minute, Dr. Aukot, because he's talking about the unholy trinity, and you all seem to be united. We'll come to you, Dr. You all seem to be united in saying this administration has a problem. So if they are the unholy trinity, Dr. Aukot, are the three of you standing here the holy trinity? You seem to agree that we remove the ones who are in power now, and you seem to agree on quite a lot. So why not come together? Is that a possibility for you in a minute?
We wouldn't be standing here, Yvonne, to present ourselves. We don't want to be elected as either of the presidency. I think for me what will set us apart, as I said earlier, is what we have all documented and promised to give to Kenyans. Again, I'll go refer back to our manifesto, what we call our promise. You will find in our manifesto that we are proposing that some of the solutions to ending corruption is to use audit reports as the first piece of evidence. And I can promise Kenyans that as a lawyer, a prosecutor, as a trial lawyer, this is one piece of evidence that has not been used. Number two, capping of government pricing is a big issue in procurement processes in this country. We are proposing to establish a department that will deal exactly with that. We are also proposing to surcharge thieving government officials or officials elected by the people of Kenya. These are concrete solutions that Kenyans can actually use. And we're also suggesting progress reports on corruption cases. This doesn't happen in Kenya. A report is filed in court. Somebody dies even before they answer questions.
All right, thank you. I want us to move very quickly to, because we're going to take a commercial break in just a moment. But let's talk about education. That's a big one. We're currently in the midst of a curriculum reform. Dr. Aukot, your manifesto says you want to enforce 100% primary to secondary transition. What are the attrition rates at the moment? The attrition rates at the moment? What are the causes, and how would you ensure that you eliminate this issue and have 100% transition?
So, number one, let me just say that the reason I am standing here before you is because education has actually equalized all of us. If it wasn't for the opportunity of education, this son of a nomad from Turkana, from Kapedo, would not be seeking the presidency of this country today. That's because of education. And that is actually the one biggest thing that Kenya has given me. What we consider in our manifesto is that education is an investment. There is no country in the world that can prosper without investment in education, in research. Now, Kenya, for example, today is actually, I think, has the worst, the worst teacher-student ratio in the world. I think at 42-1. For every 42 students, there is one teacher. I think that's really bad for us. So what we are suggesting that, if you look at our manifesto, is that we want to ensure that lack of school fees, lack of facilities, lack of educational infrastructure will not deter Kenyans from seeking an education, which is why we are proposing to standardize, modernize, and equip all educational institutions. We are also proposing to actually abolish school fees up to university level. And we are proposing to ensure that there is a standardization of educational materials in the entire country. So I believe that if we address that issue of making sure that Kenyans are not pulled out of their classrooms, young Kenyans, because of education, because of school fees, I think this country will prosper. What
are the attrition rates, sir?
To be frank, I don't think I understand your question on attrition rates. Unless you can explain.
There's a dropout between persons in class 7 and in class 8. And of course, there's those that do not make it from primary school to secondary school, which you talk about in terms of transition rates.
Yeah.
So if you're talking about transition, you would happen to know how many do not make it from one stage of education to the next, which is what we mean
I will
by
tell
attrition.
You, I may not have the exact numbers with me, and that's why we are saying, no matter the situation, we want to transit 100% from primary to secondary. And if you read our manifesto also, we are also proposing that it's not just the pursuit of academia or scholarly approach that we will be pursuing. We are also encouraging people to pursue technical skills. In this country today, Yvonne, you have actually a shortage of plumbers, for example, electricians, and all other jobs. And that's because we have killed our technical village institution. So we are proposing to make sure that that transitioning will give Kenyans the opportunity to be able to pursue whatever their skills may be.
Thank you, Daktari. Dr. Kaluyu, your children don't live in the country. They don't attend either public or private schools in this country. Why should Kenyan parents trust you with education for their children?
First, I want to complain about time. I think I have the least amount of time of answering questions. So unless my candidacy is obvious and my path is clear. So I would like to get more time, and I will welcome a clear path. As a university dean and a professor, I understand the issue of education very well. And I, having gone through education system in Kenya, and having been abroad, rising to be even an educator and an administrator of education, then I understand the issue. It does not matter where you get educated. It does not matter the school. Sometimes it may depend on the equipment. But I can tell you, when it comes to education, majority of Kenyans, less than 5% of Kenyans have degrees. There is high unskilled labor out there. And therefore, a lot of times when we speak as if the degrees are the only solution to the world. There is other trade certificates in there between that people can be given. So when it comes to university reform, and we have spoken about things like corruption, things like high taxes, and it's connected to education. First of all, when you leave secondary school, you are given or assigned a major or a concentration in a university, and you are not given a chance to choose what you want to be. And if you try to change the major, then you are penalized for being a private student. So you pay more money. You end up with a degree you don't like. You go to public offices, you steal public coffers. That's how education is connected to corruption. So when it comes to education, I will do major reforms. You think of Matiang'i, I will be Matiang'i on steroids. If you are in university, you want a major, you will change the major of your choice without penalty because you want to serve this Kenya with commitment, with what you have in your mind. So universities out there, I got your back. So just to finish, whether it is university, I had children, they would, go anywhere in the world.
I want to give you 1 minute. We have huge inequality in learning outcomes. How would you improve the outcomes of learning, very specifically? Let me give you an example. Nationally, only 3 out of 10 standard 3 pupils can do standard 2 level work. So we're talking about what's happening at the university, which is what you've talked about. But how do you improve these learning outcomes?
I'm a university dean. That's what I do on a daily basis. Making sure there's quality assurance, making sure the teacher engagement is there, student engagement is there. If you sit in a classroom and you keep a performance metrics of how the teacher is doing it, because what is causing the quality of education being low could be the teacher, could be the process, could be the books, could be the student engagement. Those are real, and they are the most current measures of quality of education, and making sure you raise it up. Even dropouts will go low. The attrition you are talking about, it will go low. That I do every day, and I know for sure it will work.
So what is that one thing you will do?
I'll make sure that I increase, first of all, is assigning students to make sure they are in a place where they need to be, having the career reassignment and making sure the career addresses the needs of the people. And sometimes the needs of Kisumu are not the same as needs in Kitui. And therefore, we will write careers, and sometimes we skill the careers towards the needs of the localities that they need, and the students will be interested at that point.
Thank you, Dr. Kaluyu. Professor Wainaina, in Nakuru Accords manifesto, he says it will require all public servants to enroll their children in public schools. You are a proprietor of a private school. How do you feel about this proposal?
I think you should have asked Nakuru about the proposal, because it is his proposal, it is not my proposal. And then he can explain why he would force anybody to take the children to public schools.
So would you force them to do that?
I don't know what he means by that. He needs to explain what he needs by that. But I see where he is coming from. And his argument is because the elite and the people who are in government have the capacity to take the children to private schools, then we have sort of neglected the public schools and denied the opportunity of regular kids the chance that you and I got. Do I agree with him on that? Yes. And when I go to my village is...
So where would that leave your school then?
We'll talk about my school. When I go to my village, Yvonne, it is very, very serious to see that only the children of the poor, of the poorest, have been left in the primary school that I went to. It was a public primary school. So that the question you're asking about improving the quality of education for our children in public schools is a pertinent question. You have asked about a question of attrition. You have asked about the question of improving outcomes. And those are some of the things that made me found a modern school in order to teach this country how education will have to be done in the future. I have said that my candidature is all about modernizing this country. And one of the things that we haven't explored in terms of solving the educational problems that we have, including the two that you have asked, attrition and outcomes, is that we have not explored the role of educational technology. I can tell you the school you have said that I own, and you can look it up in midasschools.ac.ke. We teach our students when they are on holiday, because we have used technology to overcome the constraints of brick and mortar.
1 minute.
Yes.
Why not then reinvest in the school that you said you learned in and that nobody attends anymore?
Yes.
Why then start a private school? Isn't that at odds with what you were saying here in terms of improving the quality of education in a public school?
Yes.
Yours is a private school.
Yes.
Not many Kenyans can afford to go to your school.
Yes.
But you're here telling us about improving public education.
Yvonne, you need to find out what the mission of the school is. Why did I start a private school? Let me tell you, if you want to be a rich man, please don't start a school. It is probably one of the most stupid things that anybody would do. Why did I start one anyway? Because I believe it is important to let this country know how modern education should be done. So if you go to midasschools.ac.ke, our mission is to provide modern learning systems and environments for the future. And what we want to do is to make sure, Yvonne, that when this country finally becomes interested in modernizing the education sector, there will be an institution, a flagship institution that they can go to in order to learn how modernization is done. What I am doing here as a presidential candidate is to scale up the lessons from Midas schools to make it available to all students in this country.
Including public schools?
Including, especially public schools.
Thank you very much. We have tackled quite a number of issues tonight. We have much more. We want to take a commercial break right here. You're watching the 2017 presidential debates. We are live across all participating media in the country and, of course, globally as well, online. We're taking a quick break. We have more topics, including taking questions from the audience. They will be posing their questions to your presidential candidates. We will be right back, right here from the Catholic University of Eastern Africa.
Hi, this is Oboy from Elani.
This is DJ Sadiq, the Mix Genius.
Antonio Soul and Wasim.
August 8th iko just around the corner.
Na lazima to turn up. Let's turn up and vote.
Turn up because your vote is your voice.
And we need to hear it.
Lakini kabla hiyo siku bana, si tu campaign na upole bana.
Nawaomba, nawasihi tafadhali.
Stories za vita na chuki sio fomu. Hiyo sio fomu.
Hizo si poa jamaa.
It's true. We can show support for our leaders without causing division amongst ourselves.
Manze, hii ni issue ya kuchagua leaders watatusaidia.
So mtu yangu, hiyo day tuchangamke ngware, tutokeleze manze in numbers.
Even if there are long queues.
Relax, be patient.
We still have to turn up and vote.
Turn up and vote.
Moral Buddha.
Turn up and vote.
Turn up and vote.
Turn up the peace.
Tunaweza. Tunaweza.
Tunaweza.
Tunaweza.
Tunaweza.
Mara hii tutakagua kabisa. Hatutakubali kudanganywa, hatutakubali kukula 100 200. Tunataka kuchaguana kulingana na mwenye atasikia kilio yetu, mwenye atatuletea maendeleo. Kenya kipenzi changu. Tunataka mtu atatuangalilia security na mabarabara. Juu hapa kwetu vitu sinatoka nyingi. Hapa ni kwa wakulima wa mashamba ndogo. Customer wowote anataka ile kitu mzuri kabisa, ile haina hata dot. Kwa hivyo na sisi hata kama ni huyo mjumbe, tunataka mtu ana alama hata kidogo. Tufunguke macho mara hii, tusidanganywe. Mara hii wananchi, tukague wale tunachagua, tukate kauli ya kuchagua wajumbe wa Suluhu.
Black is for the 42 tribes, our proud nation.
Masafara, manze tukue Luelala, tuhodoliwe vizuri hapa Kenya.
Si wote ni mahasla, we're ready to go out and get it.
Itabidi tukae pamoja sababu umoja ni nguvu. Na baada ya election, tutakuwa pamoja.
Deep down, our nature is just to be good-hearted and honest.
Take this chance to bring others together, to inspire change.
Everywhere we go, we shine.
Tuache mambo ya ukabila, tupendane. Kenyans are so positive. That's special.
Do you know where I want to be in 5 years' time? Here in Kenya, peacefully living the Kenyan dream.
We can build a really great nation because we have everything.
We need to live like brothers and sisters.
If you do it right, we will do it right in the future.
We might come from different places
and have different opinions.
Wakenya wenzagu, tukumbuke.
We're from the same country.
Kenya.
When we come together, great things happen.
Kenyans are go-getters.
Kenya is definitely Africa's Silicon Savannah.
Kenya has one of the best educated population.
Kenya is ripe for investment. Our business is driven by the Kenyan people.
Everyone with a phone has the power to grow the economy.
Kenya is on the verge of becoming a significant global player.
Would I invest in Kenya again? 10 times over.
And that is why the future is Kenya.
Calling the young and the limitless, the bold and the fearless. The time is here, the time is not enough with the promises that TBL you can be, you can get it, just believe. Panda mlima shika nyota, never as it seems. Aje, itafanyika aje, aje, itafanyika aje. tafadhali don't show. Had to make real dough, had to get it and plan it. Come a big bro. KCB to G Ajiri, we are the MVPs. Tunasongesha nchi mbele with the crazy skills. Tukupay to do, tunakuchonga. Tunaleta mentors wa kubonga. Tunaleta real dough, unasonga. Unapata bees info, unakonka. KCB to G Ajiri, KCB to G 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 Ajiri.
Sisi wote ni Wakenya.
Na sisi polisi tuna jukumu kubwa kulinda kura, haki na mali ya kila Mkenya.
Kumbuka pia sisi polisi ni wazazi, ni watoto, mabibi na mabwana.
Tunaamini kila Mkenya anataka uchaguzi bila vita.
Ukiwa na shida yoyote, tueleze mara moja.
Tunaomba kila Mkenya azingatie amani.
Na pia amlinde jirani wake.
Kenya kipenzi changu, sitoiacha milele daima.
Tarehe 8 Agosti.
Kagua, chagua, tujenge Kenya yetu.
Welcome to the second part of this first presidential debate. Thank you very much for staying with us wherever you are watching us from in this great country and beyond. We promised you audience questions. You've been sending them in, and also the members of the audience here as well. We have one more issue to go to, but let me first call Wanja Kiano Irungu Houghton and Dr. Scott Bellows. Even as we start to do that, I'll remind our members of the audience, there's 2 microphones on either sides of the aisle in this auditorium. Please make your questions brief even as we do that, because we'd like to get to as many questions as we can. So I think our first question tonight comes from Wanja Kiano. She's a resident of Nairobi County, and she says she's a neighbor of the Nairobi National Park. Wanja?
Good evening, gentlemen. My question is, if elected, what would you do on matters wildlife and conservation, especially like Nairobi National Park, where the lions are suffering from their endangered species? Thank you.
Thank you, Wanja. Daktari?
Thanks, Wanja. That's a very good question. I think one thing that we recognize at Third Way Alliance is that conservation is a key issue. You will see in our manifesto we talk about the environment and all the things that come with it. Of course, what has happened in this country is that poaching and crime has gone on unpunished, and the preservation of our national parks has gone. I mean, 2 years ago, my family and I went to Masai Mara, and I noticed that the ordinary Kenyan actually want to enjoy the beauty and flora and fauna of our country, but the infrastructure in the national parks is pathetic. Accessibility is a problem, and that's all a question of maintenance of our national parks. I think for me, this is a priority in our manifesto, that we will ensure that we maintain our national parks. We will not allow land grabbing in the national park to take place as it is currently. I'm told there's a 78,000 acre of land that somebody is targeting in the Nairobi National Park. This is something that will stop alongside our proposal to actually end corruption and to punish those who intend, to encroach into the national parks. This is something that we will respect and will conserve, and will, of course, preserve all the endangered species in our various national parks. I think that's one source of wealth for this nation, and I think the preservation of it is absolutely key to my party.
All right, thank you very much. We still have some more time. All right, asante sana, Dr. Okot. Dr. Kali?
Thank you. Environment is a very big pillar of what will be my administration. What is happening in poaching and wildlife is just a symptom. It is connected sometimes to poverty and environment. They are very connected. When people are poor, they may want to go and poach for tusks so that they can go and sell. So cleaning up, building infrastructure and economy that is strong can actually preserve animals, our animals in our wildlife. Number two, corruption. People allowing the animals to be poached because corruption is just corruption, it's just like that. I already promised I will be the end of corruption. And therefore, if anybody is caught doing that, they will have to serve time. If you are not ready to serve time, please do not do corruptive issues with our environment. Number two, if there is a lot of political corruption, sometimes, as my colleague said, that the land is grabbed, and that makes the environment very small for animals even to die on their own, because there is what we call ecosystem. And when you disturb the ecosystem, therefore, there will not be certain animals or little bugs you see every day that animals, big animals, actually rely on. And you will also notice that when it comes to environment, we want to make sure we adhere to the world standards. We also use GIS, Geographical Information System, to identify animals, white elephants, rhinos, black rhinos that are under threat. We make sure that we take steps forward to conserve those. So when it comes to environment, I will be an environment president also, and I can assure you I've just signed an environment agreement with environmental gentlemen, those who visit me in my house, and I can assure you that I will abide by it.
Thank you, Dr. Kaluyu. Professor?
When it comes to our wildlife, Yvonne, if you take care of the people will take care of the wildlife. If you impoverish the people and steal from the people, then you cannot expect the people to be guardians of their national and their natural heritage. So that the problem of wildlife in this country starts with, number one, the question of impunity. Because, Yvonne, the people who have been mentioned in relation to poaching, in relation to land grabbing, is not the regular Kenyan who is struggling to make a square meal. It is people with the wherewithal to do these things and get away with it. And for so long as these are the people who are in leadership, it is not just the wildlife that is at risk. Even we, the people, are at risk. And therefore, it starts and ends with leadership. It starts and ends with people whom we can trust, not just with wildlife and natural resources, but with the country. Currently, I'm just worried about the kind of names that are bandied around when it comes to travesty in the wildlife sector. I do think that it comes back to the story that we have been making this evening. Siasa ya ukabila, ukora na upuzi. If we cannot look after the people will not look after the animals. If we invest in our people, the people will see the benefit in the animals. If the benefit comes to them, they will see it. If it doesn't, then you cannot pontificate to them that they need to preserve their wildlife.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. We have our second question from Dr. Scott Bellows, who's from the USIU. A question regarding education. Dr. Scott?
Gentlemen, I appreciated before the break that you mentioned quality of education, right? Very important. However, how would you do that specifically? Could each of you take a few minutes and tell us 3 ways specifically that you would take in your first 100 days in office to make education in Kenya world class?
Number one, thanks for that question, Dr. Scott. Number one, we are proposing, and I will ensure this happens, that we abolish school fees in all our public educational institutions. That will give every Kenyan the opportunity to seek knowledge, to seek skills, because, as I said earlier, education is the greatest investment any country can have in its people. Number two, as we have said earlier, that I'll ensure that all public servants use our public institutions, including educational institution, because the failure for them to appreciate what an ordinary Kenyan goes through is the reason why institutions are dilapidated. There is no investment in them. Number two, I'm proposing in our manifesto that we will we will modernize, standardize all educational institutions, create the right infrastructure. In fact, when you read our manifesto, we are actually proposing that we will do a model kind of school in every part of the Republic of this country. And we'll make sure that the other thing that we'll do is we'll set aside 0.5, I think, percent into research. Because one of the things that this country lacks is that it's transiting research to industry. When I was chairman of Jomo Kenyatta University Council, I noticed that most of our universities are actually doing a lot of innovation, right from year 1 all to year 4. But there is no attempt to industrialize this innovation, these educational skills. For example, JKUAT students invented a tractor which is really designed for that farmer who can just till 1 acre of land. That will ensure there is food security. That has not been taken into the market. It has not been industrialized. And we are connecting that to our industrialization program, which you will see in the manifesto, including providing the right environment so that any manufacturer who sets up a company, for example, in some of the in northern part of Kenya or any other part of this country, and employs at least 200 Kenyans, receive certain tax incentives. We are trying to link research, education, and industry.
All right, thank you. Dr.
It comes down to cost, quality, and access. When it comes to access, I am proposing that we build CRCs. Education does not have to think, we don't have to think of universities only, because a small group of people are in universities. They are also doing well too. I'm not discounting them. I'm a university dean. But there is another education that is supposed to be bigger that affects most communities. We will build CRCs, or community resource centers. If you just want to be a carpenter, you'll be told which school you go to, how much it costs, and what semester it starts, and even where it is located. In fact, where you get that kind of jobs. And I will make sure university students, those who are they are in universities, they can do their internships in the CRCs and make sure we complete the circle and they get the credit they need, and our communities there, they do get the kind of education they need at the local end. When it comes to the quality, I have already promised that in the first days of office, and I'm talking those are first days of office for CRCs, that the majors will be chosen by the students. They will choose what they want to work with, and our universities will comply, because we don't want to train and graduate people who are in majors. They don't want to be doctors, they don't want to be engineers, yet they are engineers. They graduate anyway. When you send them to the civil engineering, they take off with the tractors. So we want you doing what you want to do because you chose it. And when it comes to the cost, of course, the CRCs will reduce the cost itself. So we are talking of competition, finally. Our students will compete. We are about 97th out of 118 countries that have been taken out, or they have been assessed, in terms of actually the kind of the skills that we have. So we are in low on skills, and I'll make sure we rise up competition, KICC, every day, every weekend.
Thank you, Dr. Kaluyu. Professor?
This is a good one. I like it from the USIU guy. What are we going to do for quality education? Number one, transform pedagogy. I have made this case very strongly in my blog, profmichaelwainaina.com. I have said it is not sufficient in this country to be changing curriculum every 30 years, because that is not helpful. The problem is not the curriculum. The problem is the pedagogy, the art and science of teaching and learning. If we do not transform pedagogy, even if we got a curriculum from heaven, it is not going to help us. And I did that article when they said that they are removing the 844. And I told them, guys, the problem is not the 844 system. The problem is how we are teaching. We need to fix that. So number one, transform pedagogy. Number two, modernize the teaching profession. When we stopped respecting our teachers, when our teachers became the laughing stock in our society, that is when our education system went down the drain. We do need not only to remunerate our teachers properly, but we do need to professionalize teaching so that we give them modern pedagogical skills, we give them modern pedagogical tools in order for them to train the next generation. Do you know that if I went back to the school where I was 30 years ago, they still teach the modern child the way they were teaching me then? It cannot work. We have to transform pedagogy, we have to modernize the teaching profession, and we have to deploy technology, because the learning of the future is going to be aided by technology, and technology is going to help us overcome some of the bottlenecks that we are having in the current education system. So those are just one or three of the things that I would do. But finally, this is very important. Yvonne, you'll give me 1 minute.
No, I will
is
not.
That
Please,
we
your
need...
time is up, sir.
Okay, I'll squeeze it somewhere else.
Your time is up. Thank you very much. I would like us to go to our third question this evening, and that's from Irungu Houghton.
Good evening, fellow Kenyans and Yvonne. Candidates, this is a fair question. I would ask the same question of the incumbent president if he was here. You have stated very clearly your commitment to social justice, to good governance, to integrity of leadership. My question to you tonight is, if you are not elected according to the people's will on August the 8th, in the first 100 days, what will you do to keep that commitment alive for Kenyans?
Thanks, Irungu. I mean, that's a very good question. Did you say if I'm elected or if I'm not elected?
If you are not elected, it is possible.
It's possible. It's also possible I'll be elected. Now, first of all, I think the number one thing that I will do is to ensure that I accept results, fair results, as announced. Number two is I'll keep on soldiering. I'll keep on. In fact, we are proposing at Third Way Alliance that we will probably have the first shadow cabinet this country has ever had in the history of this country, because we must ensure that government is checked. This has been the problem in the last 5 years of this presidency. You have had a failed opposition that has not even taken advantage of its opportunity in parliament itself. And you will recall, Irungu, that when there was a proposal to amend the constitution of Kenya, and many of us questioned which aspect of the constitution, for example, do you want to amend so that actually the cost of living could come down? This is a question of an opposition that has failed to say that this government has failed in its policies, even using the so-called tyranny of numbers that they may have. So my proposal is that we will definitely continue checking on this government. We will continue to make sure that issues that concern to us, theft of public money, is a question on our table. We will continue to advocate for the peaceful coexistence of the people of Kenya, that tribalism in Ujinga. We will continue to advocate for ending economic and social injustice in this country. We will ensure that we agitate for the inclusion of youth and women into government. Currently, even as the person comes to seek re-election here tonight, if he ever comes, I hope you Kenyans will be able to ask, how is it that you have treated the youth and women in this country? Because even a third of his government has actually not met that constitutional test. We will continue this advocacy. Our party will not down its stool. As a matter of fact, we'll go out there and ensure that Kenyans understand what is the value of leadership in any country.
Thank you. Dr. Kaluyu.
Thank you. I want to lead this nation, and I humbly ask Kenyans to give me the opportunity to do that. If that does not happen, I want to assure Kenyans, I did not come to run for the President of the Republic of Kenya just to end at August 8th. Take, for example, I have been in many inner-city low-income and minorities.
Sorry, where?
I have been in many inner-city low-income and minority areas, that is Mathare North, Mathare Valley, Kibera, and think last week I gave you Muthiora Kariara. Is someone I have coached, I have mentored, and I will continue to mentor. I cannot step aside. The people in Kibera, the people in Mathare Northern Valley, I cannot stay away from you. I will continue to lead, and I have a role to play in this country. So if you give me the opportunity, I will lead this country, including them. But if it doesn't happen, I will continue to lead the way I've been leading. So the people in Kibera, Mathare, or the Kitui inner city low-income and minorities, Niaji, Wazito, I am with you, I got your back. So we will continue. But should also, on the other side, and we have many, we have Team A, we are on Team B, I think, But
that's you
even
alone, Dr. Kalu. I'm in Team A. What about you?
Thank you for the assistance. But let me take this from here. From here, go forward. Now, if I get the opportunity from you to be the commander-in-chief, I will not just stop. I will approach President Kenyatta. I will approach Raila Odinga. I will approach Ikuru. I will approach my friend here, Mr. Wainaina, Ndida, wherever you are, Joe, and even Jirogo. I will ask them for the manifesto. I will ask them to give me their experience. Together, we will lead. Just because you have failed does not mean you have failed in leadership. I am ready for duty, and that's why I'm running for the President of the Republic of Kenya.
Thank you. Professor?
My commitment to youthify and modernize Kenya comes from a deep commitment to the fact that it is time for a new generation to get involved in setting this country on a different trajectory, on a different direction. That commitment did not start now, and that commitment is not going to end on 8th of August. I am totally committed to the cause of inspiring and investing in a new generation of young men and women who will modernize this country, because Yvonne, I don't know of any other way. I have been asked, why is your story youth, youth, youth? And my answer is because I do not know of any other way that we can reimagine and reinvent the Republic. We have to invest, we have to inspire a new generation of young people who are going to do it. And some of the things that I'm proposing on my manifesto are doable on a very, very small scale, and we will continue to do them. Things like internships, things like innovation, things like mentoring, things like business incubation, things like support for film and creative arts, which I am already doing. Things like skills development are things that I can continue to do and will continue to do to support my very, very strong belief that the only way for us to get a new trajectory for this country is to inspire and invest in a new generation of young people. And therefore, the Youthify and Modernize movement is not going to end on 8th of August. In fact, I think whichever way this goes, it is going to be energized on the 8th of August. And the young people in this country, for now and in future, can continue to count on me that for so long as I am on this podium or any other podium, their voice will not be neglected, and like I showed you, they will not be coming last on your list.
Thank you. Let's talk about youth and women now. Youth Agenda has done an analysis on your various manifestos with respect to the matter of youth. I'll start with you, Dr. Aukot. They talk about they say the youth may have been catered for under the general priority areas in your manifesto: mining, agro-processing, the dairy industry, fishing and fish processing, among all the other issues that you have given priority. But they say the benefits to the youth are not explicitly expounded in all the above initiatives. You've got 2 minutes to perhaps do that now.
Thanks. First of all, one of our strongest pillars is actually youth and women taking over government. We are making a differentiation on the use of empowerment. This word empowerment has been used for the longest time. Only for people to get into power, set aside money for youth and women, and only to steal it. So what we are proposing in our manifesto is this, that youth and women must take over government. And we are challenging youth. It's no point arguing that you are the majority, that 70% of the population of Kenya is youth, and of course women. You have never used your numbers to have the kind of desired government that you want. So in our proposal, we want to ensure there is a government that is responsive to the problems of the youth in this country, which is why we are specifically proposing, for example, that our cabinet will ensure at the very minimum there is a third youth representation with a view to going to 50-50. We are also proposing that all senior government appointments will be structured to ensure that there is 50% of youth inclusion, and of course also women. We are also proposing, you see our proposal on education alone, we are actually proposing to abolish school fees from all educational, in all public educational institutions. This is a benefit to the youth. Look at our pillar on ending economic and social injustice, the creation of jobs. Our target is actually the youth of this country, and we are saying, I am tired, and I'm telling many youthful people, for the last, I can't remember how many years, I've always been told you are tomorrow's leaders. And we are asking you, when is tomorrow coming? Because your daily life struggles are actually felt today. So if you are the youth of this country, you must arrest tomorrow and make it today. And we are giving you that platform at Third Way Alliance. And that's why we are actually encouraging succession planning, so that, even back to Irongo's question, even if Ekuru Aukot does not become the president of Kenya this year and the years to come, I hope we'll have encouraged enough young people to succeed me and many others to seek leadership. That you will find in a manifesto.
All right, thank you. Dr. Kaluyu, what's your understanding of the youth question in the country? And give us perhaps two very specific points that would be a possible legacy of your presidency if you win on the 8th of August with respect to the youth.
To the youth. If you want to talk about a problem, you can as well start showing results. Again, I brought to you Mr. Muthiora Kariara, someone I've worked with, we have spoken to, and the Kenya has fallen in love. And we are trying to make sure that if I'm talking about the youth, I'm showing results. There you have it with Muthiora. Number two, when it comes to the youth, it's a very passionate thing for me, very special thing for me. Because recently I've heard they are like pundas and farasis, or some horses and donkeys. But I can tell you, I've taken a donkey as a young man. I've taken a donkey to the river, to distant shores, to fetch water. I have gone to scary forest with a donkey to fetch firewood and blown fire to cook for our family. So I know as a punda that I can carry the burden of Kenyans, because after all, many people, they go around saying that punda amechoka, and that is Kenyan people, and I'm a punda, I'm okay. Because Punda should support just Punda. So Pundas, I'm asking you to support me. But whatever the case, I have gone to the inner city low income and I have seen the work of good people. I have gone to Mathare with Ekodida. I have seen how he has development, people, other people, youth like Esther Lian. We have done work and they are not stepping back. So when it comes to specific of a youth for two things that you want, I will have every constituency 2-kilometer radius of cyber technology, because youth has been told road is being constructed. You take the shovel, you continue work. And if you don't work, you are refusing work, you are lazy. And also go to the farms, do certain things. And if you don't do it, you don't understand it. Youth needs to be given 21st century jobs. And the youth, I got your back. You will get a laptop. If you have a laptop, at the end of you, diaspora, and they know it. They will come and give you work, and we service the world. 54,000 technology spaces in Africa. But I can tell you, India and Philippines are leading. We will serve the world, and diaspora and the youth will get together.
Thank you,
I'm
Dr.
the youth president.
Professor Wainaina, your manifesto outlines an ambitious plan to build the biggest youth skills and talent development on earth.
Yes.
So just how big will it be? How much will it cost? And what exactly will it do to solve the unemployment problem amongst young people?
It is just part of the infrastructure that we're laying out, Yvonne. It is not the only infrastructure that we're laying out. We said that it is our flagship project. But in terms of laying out a youth development and support infrastructure, I agree with you. We have a robust and we have an ambitious plan. I will remind you, Yvonne, Dr. Julius Nyerere was the president of Tanzania, and he said, dhamana ya taifa ni kuwa na vijana wenye malezi bora, siha njema na bongo kali. That is what our manifesto is based on. The understanding that we have to start looking at our youth as the biggest resource that we have. So, you ask, what are we going to do about the youth? Number one, we need to change the paradigm of approaching youth in this country. For the last 54 years, the successive governments have dealt with the issue of youth as a problem to be solved. So that when they are listing down their problems, youth is in that list. And what we are telling them is that youth is not a problem to be solved. It is a resource to be developed. And that is why we are going to invest in a vast youth development and support infrastructure, the Youth Skills and Talent Development Center just being one of those centers. That's number one. Number two is a question of representation. It is ridiculous to have 70% of the population unrepresented. And what we have said is that we are going to amend Section 7, Section 8, and Section 11 of the Constitution, so that we can achieve 50% representation of youth, 50% representation of men and 50% representation of women. What the Youthify and Modernized government, Yvonne, is trying to do is not only have youth as a resource, but make this the most exciting country to be young.
Thank you, gentlemen. We've come to the close of our conversation, but I want to give you the last word, naturally. You each have 90 seconds now for your closing statements tonight to Kenyans and to registered voters who will be going to the ballot in just about 14 days. Dr. Aukot, we'll start with you in the order of ballot.
Thank you very much. I thought I would get 1 minute to rebut something that Kaluuya kept on repeating here about the youth. I think one of the things that I will do about the youth is not to teach them dishonesty. Integrity is very important. On the 16th of July, before the first debate, all of us, 12 of us with our deputies, actually signed a document which was objecting in the manner in which this presidential debate was being structured. It was very unconstitutional, even in terms of just allocating the 3 of us here 90 minutes, and then the 2 people that you are waiting 90 minutes. That was unfair. And we signed a document that says, unless the debate is restructured to at least be equitable to us, we will not participate. Dr. Kaluuya told the young person is trying to parade before here to disobey that agreement. That is dishonesty. You cannot lead a country if you do not respect what your peers and you agree. So that's one problem we have. Now to my closing remarks.
I will now add you 90 seconds.
Thank you very much. Now,
so we can start the clock to 90 seconds.
As I close these remarks, I want to ask Kenyans for your vote. Because my candidature is not about power. It's about people. If you read the 6 pillars of our party, ending economic and social injustice, ending theft of public money, women and youth taking over government, protecting the constitution, rule of law, and placing Kenya into its competitive global agenda. It's about how do we transit this country into a first world country. We have got the best plans on how to change this country. But I also want to appeal to Kenyans, even as we go into this election. There cannot be any other country in the world than Kenya. I think this is the best country that we are given. And I want to remind you, Kenyans, that in 1992, an incumbent was defending election, violence broke out in Rift Valley. In 1997, the same thing. In 2013, there was no incumbent defending election, and we had a relatively peaceful election. In 2007, an incumbent was defending election, and again, there was violence. I hope Kenyans, in this 2017, whatever the outcome, we must keep this country intact. Now, I would like us to shun politics of tribalism, because nobody eats tribe. If your rent is due at the end of this month, none of us will run to our tribes and say, I want rent, I want school fees for my children, I want health care. I think we have a very good country, a great country to be proud of. And I wish Kenyans will look into issues, into ideas, into what's the best plans. And I'm asking for your vote on August 8th, 2017. And I promise you I'll implement each and every aspect of manifesto, and I have signed it as a commitment and promise to Kenyans.
Thank you very much. Dr. Kaluuya, you have 90 seconds to make your final submissions to the
First, I want to refute what Dr. Ekuru has said. And
so we'll give you a minute.
Yes, because first, he's trying to reject what the young man did, and the country fell in love with him. Number 2, he wanted to come us to reject what the orders of the court were and come and parade ourselves here. We refuse to debate. We deny people their opportunity to hear whether we have plans. If you have a plan, wouldn't you be very enthusiastic, energetic, and very energized to come and present it to Kenyan people? Muthiora Kariara and I had a plan, and I did not come from Washington, D.C. to come here and play funny games. I paid 200,000 shillings, and I needed to tell the Kenyan people my plan. Now, if you allow me, I can continue, but because I still have other things, I can also promise Kenyan young people to follow law. He said whether I can actually lead the country if I violate a certain agreement. This is teaching the young people, violate the law, do not, even if it's written by me, he was the CEO, do not follow it, we don't care about it. Now, who should lead and who shouldn't?
Okay.
Now, I need my time.
Let's give you a 90 seconds.
My fellow Kenyans, tonight, definitely, I present myself as an independent candidate for the President of the Republic of Kenya. That now, the fun and games and big crowds are over, and the political funness is end. It comes to this moment, just this moment. The moment that you must decide how yourself, your children, and the children of your children are going to live in future. I am tired of broken promises for the Kenyan people. I am tired of people telling you everything, the same thing over and over, business as usual. Now it is the moment to choose. Dr. Japheth Kavinga Kaluyu and Muthiora Kariara, we like David, we come with a sling because we are underfunded. We do not have a big name and fame. We come with a sling and a few stones. But with prayer and the name of God behind us, we are ready to face the political Goliaths. And now, as opposed to what people thought, it is a dog fight. And you know what? We accept we are pundas. And trust me, when the pundas are tired, do not step behind them. They kick hard. So we're going to kick hard. We're going to fight hard. And we can tell you, you can trust us. We are not business as usual. A fresh start. And please, we humbly ask for your support. Kenya will be different, a beacon of hope and a shining city on the hill. And ladies and gentlemen, you will not recognize in future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Prof, 90 seconds starts now.
Thank you. It would be remiss of me not to recommend a good book for the viewers. It is by Greg Mills, and it says, Why Africa is Poor and What Africans Can Do About It. It's a good book that you need to read, but one of the things that he says that I would like to use as my closing comment is that no one works harder, longer, to produce so much for so many with so little like the African woman. And I would like to thank the Kenyan woman for bringing us to where they have brought us now. But we need a new vision, and we need a new direction. And this new vision and new direction is going to come from a new generation. And young people in this country, if you're young in this country, you have an appointment with the future. And the Youthify and Modernize government is going to prepare you for that appointment with the future. You will hear about 1940, you will hear about 1960, you will hear about 1990. You will not live in 1940. You will live in 2040. You will not live in 1960. You will live in 2060. And the Youthify and Modernize Kenya government wants to lay a foundation so that your 2060 will be different from the Kenya that we have today. Youthify and Modernize Kenya on 8th, vote for Michael Wainaina Mwaura and Miriam Mutua for president.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, and thank you very much for honoring our invite to this debate tonight. I just want to remind all our viewers that this invitation was extended to all candidates, including independent presidential candidate Joseph Nyaga, as well as a UDP presidential candidate Cyrus Shahalaga Hua Jirongo, and the Alliance for Real Change Mohamed Abduba Dida. Now, the next edition of the presidential debate takes place at 8 p.m. tonight and is expected to feature President Uhuru Kenyatta and Honorable Raila Odinga. That debate will be moderated by Joe Ageo of KTN News and Linus Kaikai of NTV. I want you to stay on for the next debate. From me, Yvonne Okwara Matole, have a good evening and remember to vote wisely on the 8th of August. Please, candidates, kindly converge to the center for a handshake for that.
Biashara ya uvuvi saa hii kidogo imeenda chini. Kwa hiyo kile unachopata utamshukuru Mungu, lakini si kama vile zamani.
Kenya kipenzi cha
Vijana wengi wanarandaranda, hawana kazi. Na vile ndio waenda ikachangia watoto wetu wakawa wanajiunga na magenge ambayo si mazuri. Kisiasa viongozi ndio kidogo wanatupatia shida. atakwambia shida zenu zishakwisha, lakini itakuwa ni maneno tu ya mdomoni, ataenda na baridi, hatutopata lolote. Tuangalie yule kiongozi ambaye atatunufaisha, tukague kabla tuchague.
This Kenyan came home.
And of course, I'm the first Kenyan American to be president of the United States.
And we were there when our little princess stole the show.
When I look down at this golden statue, no matter where you're from, your dreams are valid.
Together, we have seen lives changed and smiles made. We were there when they showed the world how to dance. And together, we saw this lion find his way from the dusty fields of Muthurwa to the bright lights of North London.
Emphatic finish from Victor Wanyama.
We have shared the most incredible moments together because DSTV and GoTV have not only brought the world to Kenya, but taken Kenya to the world.
August 8th in Akam, lazima to turn up and vote.
Because your vote is your voice.
And we need to hear it.
We can show all our leaders full support.
Without causing division amongst ourselves.
And even if the queues are long,
be patient, kaa kwa line mpaka vote.
Hii ni issue ya kuchagua leaders ambao watatusaidia sisi.